What's going on, everybody? My name's LeakyTapsMan, and this is another wishlist video in which I tell you guys what I'd like to see in the sequel to an established game series. And this week I'm going to do Just Cause 3. Now, as always, this is entirely subjective, this is just my opinion, so I'd rather you don't get your pitchforks and torches at the ready. If you don't agree with me, just give a comment saying what you would like in the game. But anyway, let's get down to brass tacks. I'm going to throw it out there that Just Cause is probably an open world game with the most potential out of any of them, but it doesn't fulfill a lot of that potential, and I think these suggestions would mean that Just Cause could compete with the likes of Grand Theft Auto with Red Dead Redemption, with these massive open world games that have a bit more refinement to them. And with that in mind, my main suggestion above all else is let the story develop more than just having some occasional cutscene with the same less than reputable character that we're not meant to trust but kind of do. Some actual interesting characters that aren't just forgettable the second that you leave the cutscene. Grand Theft Auto does a great job of this, where you remember pretty much every character, even outside of the main character, because they have such great personalities and they're unique and they have their own traits, whereas a lot of characters in Just Cause feel generic. And keeping in with the whole main storyline aspect, the mission variety needs to be far more varied. Essentially, the vast majority of missions just boil down to going to point A and destroying an item or killing someone. So make the missions consist of more than just go to point A and do point B. Give us some stealth options, let us use silent takedowns, let us use silencers on our guns. If we're in a mission with militia or squad members, then let us command those squad members to attack certain people or go a certain route, and just make missions feel like we have more options than just going in all guns blazing, which is fine for a lot of them, but it starts to wear thin. And when you think of the wealth of options that are in other games similar to Just Cause, then the monotony starts to really become quite evident, in my opinion. Now for Just Cause, another suggestion, quite a big one actually, that I would really love to see as co-op. Now, a lot of the time when series have become established with being single player only, I'm not a massive advocate of just throwing in multiplayer for the sake of it, but with Just Cause, you think they've got the foundations in place and the gameplay is essentially built for a co-op experience, it would be absolutely insane. There are limitless possibilities when you've got the grappling hooks and the parachuting and all the insane vehicle stunts. Just imagine that with 2 players or even 4. That would be absolutely incredible. And considering the size of the game physically, whether it would be doable on this current hardware, maybe they'd have to postpone it till next generation, which I think would be fine. But co-op is something that I would really love to see in Just Cause 3. Another thing I would love to see feature-wise is destructibility, more so, to the extent where we can destroy buildings and not just miscellaneous structures. Again, this is something that the technology at present might not be able to handle all that well, but you'd have to think the next generation of Xbox and PlayStation and maybe even the Wii U could handle it. But massive scale destructibility is something that can really set it apart from a lot of games. And one quite big gameplay aspect that I would like is a major refinement of the aiming system, because it is basically piss poor compared to not just open world games but third person shooters. It needs to be a lot tighter. And if you're not sure what I mean by tighter, the gunplay didn't measure up. It didn't always feel like I was shooting at the thing I was aiming at. And I'd also like to see a cover system built in with it, because when we're getting shot to crap from like 10 different guys, just only being able to run around like a headless chicken is a bit redundant and backwards in my opinion. With the style of gameplay that Just Cause offers in the shooting sections, I'm surprised that covering wasn't included. It did seem like quite a big omission in my opinion. And as well as the aiming system, I'd love to see a lot more refinement to the player movement in terms of animation and physics. I appreciate the fact that a massive world is a lot harder to code certain physics aspects, but the animation especially seems stiff and could use quite a lot of work. Another quite big addition in my opinion is the allowance of cheats or some kind of Keys to the City mode. Keys to the City is a mode in Crackdown, if you've not played it, where you can basically spawn items, spawn vehicles, adjust a lot of settings like the amount of NPCs, stuff like that, that basically is cheats. Obviously disable achievements and have separate save files for these kind of game modes, but I'd love to have some kind of mode where we can just spawn a vehicle at a whim, get rid of NPCs or populate islands with far more enemies, and it adds a lot of longevity to the game, especially if they do include co-op. I could imagine losing a lot of hours to something like that. In terms of the location, I absolutely love the setting in Just Cause 2. The combination of the likes of tropical islands and deserts and snowy mountains was superb. One thing I would suggest is that towns and cities need to be far more distinctive and unique. They all felt like they were from a cookie cutter, they looked incredibly similar, and they were very unpopulated. I'd like to see a lot more civilian NPCs in those areas. It just makes the game feel far more alive. And speaking of making it feel like a more living world, I'd love to see trains going around some of the islands. It seems like a good opportunity for stuff like grappling and derailing them, and it could probably make some interesting missions as well. And considering the massive variety of other vehicles, train seems like quite a large mission. And I'll finish on a couple of quickies. Air vehicles need to be a lot faster. Helicopters just seem incredibly slow. Jets, while they are admittedly faster, they don't feel as fast as freaking air jets should. So just up the pace of them ever so slightly. And keep the bugs to a minimum. I appreciate the fact that this is an absolutely massive game, and with the size and scope of such a game, bugs are inevitable. But I'd just say offer a bit more refinement in your development time, and don't bring out the game in a state where the majority of players won't want to play it until there's a big patch a few months down the line, because far too many games just hinge on the fact that they're going to bring out a patch later, and that should not be what games are like, in my opinion. Alright, so that's more or less everything that I would like to see in Just Cause 3. As always, I'd love to hear your guys' opinions. Do you think that co-op would work, or would it just be a waste of time and resources for the developers? Is there a certain type of vehicle that you'd like to see in the game? What kind of gameplay refinements would you like to see, if any? And just drop a comment in the comments section, because I do read every single one, even if I don't necessarily reply to all of them. And I thank you for watching this video. If you like it, then please hit the like button. If you like me, then please subscribe, and you can follow me on Twitter if you so wish. Good day.